So it's good to be here. Thank you, Professor Liu, for the invitation. I must say I'm quite jet lagged, but I'm 100% here, so very happy to be here. Today I will say a little bit more about how to publish with Nature Partner Journals. So we'll start with some introductions. I'll say a little bit about the Nature portfolio, the NPJs, the Nature Partner Journals, and then a bit about the editorial and publishing process. So a little bit about me. I'm senior publisher. Amongst a lot of the journals that I manage is NPJ Cardiovascular Health. I joined Springer Nature 4 years ago, roughly, and I've previously managed journals in cell biology, neuroscience, and now I manage journals within the Nature portfolio. So, the Nature portfolio. As you know, we have a lot of journals in the Nature portfolio, and starting with the flagship journal, Nature, and then the research journals, Nature Communications, the communications journals, and then sort of my special group of journals, the NPJs. The NPJs are quite special in that sense because most of the Nature portfolio journals are edited by internal editors. The NPJs are the only ones that are community-led journals. So we have external editors in chief who are members of the community, of the research community, who lead these journals. These are specialized journal series with specific interesting research for those communities. And our audience, our readers, are people who are looking to publish good quality, good high impact work in reputable journals. So as of this year, we have almost 80 journals, and we're continuously wanting to launch more as well. The features of the NPJs are community focus, Nature portfolio values and standards, selective but still accessible, and this I find very important, responsive to community needs. And so we work day to day with the community to develop the journals. We offer a variety of partnership options. My colleague will say a little bit more about this later on as well. But the main partnership that we have is with our editors-in-chief, who are closer to the community, they're researchers in the field. And the idea is that we have a collaborative environment with the community and as well as institutions as well. What is quite special about the Nature portfolio is that we offer authors a variety of transfer options. And I'll say a little bit more about this later on, but you will see here that for every level of selectivity, we offer authors an option. So this was a bit about the Nature portfolio. I will then talk about the editorial process. So the top questions about publishing an editorial process. So today I will discuss these 6 questions about choosing a journal, avoiding desk rejection, peer review as well, reviewer feedback, and what happens if a paper is rejected as well. And then a little bit more at the end about open access. So this is a tough question, right? I have a paper, I've done some research. How do I choose the right journal? It's important to think about, is your work for broad scope or a specialist audience? I'm thinking about a journal. What is the aims and scope of the journal? Does my work fit into that scope? What is the audience of the journal? What is the readership as well? And of course, then it's important to think about the impact and the threshold of the journal, the selectivity, right? Authors also have to think about requirements like turnaround times, How much time does it take from submission to publication? Open access, is the journal open access? And what are the publication fees? So what you have here on the screen is a QR code for our journal finder tool, where you can put in your abstract and title, and you will get an option of which journal would fit your research best. Okay, so this I think is probably quite important, and I want to give you a few tips on how to avoid desk rejection. So your paper, how to avoid your paper being rejected and not being sent out to review. Cover letter, title and abstract, figures and tables, and conclusions. So I will say a little bit more about these 4 points. So writing a cover letter, right? So we think, well, I've done the research, my paper is brilliant, why do I need to write a cover letter? I think it's quite important because it gives the editors an idea of, about your paper, how you came about this research, and it gives them a story about your manuscript. So it's important to address the editor-in-chief, include the journal's name, date of submission, talk about your article, give a brief background about the study, the research question, just 2 or 3 lines about what was done, top-line findings, and give a sense to the editor that you have thought about why readers of the journal will be interested in reading your research, and what is the importance of these results to the field. I've also heard from editors that they find reviewer suggestions very helpful. So you can include 4 to 5 potential reviewers for your manuscript, but be aware that they shouldn't have any conflicts of interest. So that's quite important. And then you can also add information about your other papers that have been submitted elsewhere. So the editor knows that, okay, this is part of a wider research topic. And then a title. The title should convey the main message of your paper. Be as concise as possible. This also helps readers later on when your paper is published. And writing an informative abstract. So in the abstract, in 150 words, you have to say why you're working on this topic, and it's important to show what you have found out. So you can start with, the sentence, here we show, and this is the most important sentence in the abstract. Use numbers to talk about your main finding as well. And in 1 sentence or 2, talk about how this work builds upon previous knowledge. So these are also, so the title and abstract are the first things that an editor will read. So they need to be very impactful and good. Figures and tables. So ensure that your figures and tables are clear and to the point. What the data tells us should be obvious from a single glance without having to read the main text. So again, clear figures and tables. Online journals these days also allow a lot of figures. There is usually no limit. So do use several figures if needed. And lastly, conclusions, right? So be specific. Don't conclude with vague generalizations that could apply to any paper. Be specific and explain exactly the implications of your work as well. I also want to signpost a couple of other resources. So on the Nature website, we have an example of how to write a summary paragraph, how to write an abstract. I found that quite helpful. There is also a Nature guide to preparing figures. And this website is quite nice because it gives you an idea of what Nature editors are looking at when they're looking at your figures. So you've taken my advice, you've put together a great cover letter, great title, abstract, and then you've submitted your paper. So what's next? Convincing the reviewers. So your paper has been sent out to reviewers, and yeah. So what do reviewers want? Reviewers want to be convinced that your study is a credible work, right? So they're looking at different points. So whether the research question is clear and relevant, that's quite key. Literature review. Do you give a good sense to the reader that you know the literature? Appropriate study power and methodology. Methodology, of course, is very important. And if you have analyzed your results deeply, including a discussion of the limitations, right? Because no study is perfect. There are limitations, but it's important to acknowledge them. The most important thing is we need to make it easy for reviewers to see how good your work is. So by the time it gets to reviewers, we need to make sure that it's quite straightforward for them. Now a little bit on the negative side. So I want to say a bit about the reasons why reviewers may recommend rejection. Sometimes there are fundamental issues with the study, like methodology, for instance, or it does not meet community standards. Other times, there could be an overinterpretation of the results as well. Sometimes, there are questions about that the conclusions are not supported by the data. That is quite important, right? If the conclusions are vague or they're not supported, a paper is likely to be rejected as well. And the last point is quite journal specific, that reviewers may raise concerns about the impact, interest, and novelty of the research. So this is the sort of more negative side. Just again, a quick summary. These are the points that lead to unfavorable reviews. Unclear research question and objectives, not stating the significance of the study, partial, superficial literature review, outdated references, insufficiently described methodology, inappropriate statistical tests, for instance, and often what happens is that when an editor receives these reviews, and for instance, if it's major revisions, they might also think about, whether these kind of issues can actually be addressed during a revision. Sometimes not as well. So yeah, when you receive feedback from reviewers and from the editor, it's important to think about interpreting this feedback, right? And most important for me is to think about criticism not as an insult. It's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to make your paper better. And if an expert hasn't understood how good your work is, then it's a problem wherever the paper is published. Sometimes the referees are asking for, they have certain suggestions, they're asking for something you don't understand. In that moment, it's all right to contact the editor and to ask for clarification as well. Now, you have had a look at the reviewer feedback, you've revised your paper, and most journals will ask you to write a rebuttal letter. This is a very important letter because in this letter, you will answer all the concerns of the referees, even if you disagree with them. You could have maybe reanalyzed data, conducted new experiments, enhanced the clarity and writing of the paper as well. Again, make it easy for the reviewers to see that you have addressed their concerns. So a detailed rebuttal letter is quite important. I would say it's important also to be persuasive, but also to be diplomatic as well. So try and make the reviewer understand that you have paid attention to their comments and you respect their feedback as well. Sometimes there are also, even after major revisions, there are more revisions requested and so on. And so I would advise you to be patient and continue to improve the manuscript. Remember, each round of revision makes your paper stronger. Peer review and revising a paper is only meant to improve your work. Sometimes it does happen that a paper is rejected after review or before review. And in this moment, I would say, don't take it personally. It happens to everyone. It doesn't reflect your worth as a writer or as a scientist. Review the feedback carefully and think about improving, right? Think about what are the patterns? What is the most critical feedback that you have received? And use this feedback then to strengthen your paper. Whether, it's refining your argument, improving clarity, or adding additional data. Really use this experience as a way to improve. And then you have the option to choose your next step. If you've been given an option to do so, you can resubmit to the same journal, or you could submit to a different journal as well. Overall, try and learn from the experience and stay positive as well. So within the Nature portfolio, we also give, we're home for all research, we say. So we give authors an opportunity to transfer their paper to different journals. So for instance, at Nature Communications, you might be given the opportunity to transfer your paper to NPJ Cardiovascular Health, for instance. And yeah, so that's an option that we offer to authors as well. So my last couple of slides are a little bit about open access. So the NPJ journals, the Nature Partner journals, are fully open access journals. And when we think about open access, we also have to think about the benefits, right? So what are the benefits of publishing open access? For instance, we see that open access articles are cited more, 1.6 times more than non-open access articles. They are downloaded more, 4 times more than non-open access. And overall, they have a greater impact. So they receive more attention in the news, in policy, on social media, for instance, as well. And it allows more interdisciplinary conversation and collaboration as well. And nowadays, of course, a lot of funders also mandate that the research published needs to be open access. Sometimes it can be difficult to get open access funding. So at Springer Nature, we offer a free service, which will make it easier for our authors to discover and apply for funding to cover the article processing charges, the APCs. What this service does is that they will provide personalized information on the funds that may be available to you. So yeah, if you scan this QR code, it will take you directly to the support service, and they will be able to offer personalized advice on applying for funds, on the application process, and also they will give you information as well to complete an open access funding application. We also have at the NPJ's discretionary APC waivers as well, especially at NPJ Cardiovascular Health. So with that, I will finish my presentation. And I just wanted to say thank you. I'm really happy to be here and thank you for listening.